Is it possible to take one prompt and create an entire TV show using Google's Veo3 video model? That's the question that I want to answer. And I'm going to show you my process here, what I've done to answer that question. And I'm going to give you a little clip of, or a little teaser of what we're going to create today. I'm going to show you my whole process. I created this like studio model with different roles for the different scripts or the different models, combine them all together. And then I'm going to talk about a little bit about episode 2 and how we're going to approach that. So follow along for the journey, and I hope that you find this interesting.
The observer becoming the observed.
All right, so let's get cracking. Let's go through each of these roles in a bit more detail so that we understand the whole process. Some of these roles I'll build today, others I'll build in future episodes because firstly, I don't want to overcomplicate things, and secondly, as we'll discuss later, some of these are not currently available, and some of these will be partly built out. So for example, Google Veo3 doesn't have a public API yet. There's a waiting list, which I am on, but they haven't let me on yet. So there's no way of generating Veo3 or Veo3 API requests other than some third-party APIs that are very expensive. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I will be generating the Veo3 clips manually at first. And then we have the narrator, who will be basically, I think the main problem with Veo3 is consistency, or like going from scene to scene. We'll try and maintain some consistency, and we'll talk about the prompts in a bit, but there's going to be a huge problem with style, and I think, to be honest, that it's going to look a bit weird. So to try and maintain some level of consistency, I think having some kind of narration going through this will help a lot. The sound supervisor. So by the way, I'm not like into TV or anything at all. Like I don't have any experience in film or TV production. So this is just my best guess as to what these titles would actually be called. But I'm imagining like the sound supervisor is the person that would be responsible for speaking to the composer, getting the music, getting the Foley and audio added to the pictures. And for this, we're going to use Udio, which I've had a bit of experience with, Udio.com. And of all like the AI music gen apps I've used, Udio is the most cinematic and the most professional sounding. The director role, I've put my face here because, or my avatar here because I'm going to be doing that at first. But in the future, the director role will be responsible for kind of putting all this together. So actually, I can use my Apple Pencil. Finally found a use case for this. The director is going to be talking to, it's going to be a script, like, I don't know, it'll be Python or something. He'll be talking to the narrator. Well, actually, first it'll probably be talking to the writer. The writer is the person, like the model that will be generating the prompts, basically. So the director will be communicating the concept and the data to the writer and saying, hey, give me some prompts for the narration, for the cinematography, for the sound. And then the director will be sending all of these prompts out to the various different models. So maybe it's worth talking about the Analyst a little bit. This won't be in the first episode, so I've grayed out the ones that we won't necessarily have much of in the first episode. But one thing we can definitely do is the YouTube API gives you access to retention data, and you can tell how far into a video certain viewership dropped off, or what percentage of people dropped off after, let's say, the first minute mark. And we can see these actions of our video based on the timestamp. So after the first video, we can't do this for the first video because we have no data, but after the first video, once we've got to a certain level of views, we know that we can analyze this data automatically we can, I imagine they do this in a real TV studio. I don't know. I imagine they look at viewership numbers. I imagine Netflix has like loads of data about, viewership drop off and, what percentage of the episode people watched. In the same way that YouTubers will know this, that there's loads of data you can access about this kind of information. And we can feed this all into a model. I've put Gemini here, but it could be any LLM. And we can say, based on this information, how can we improve the scripts, the prompts, the structure, everything? I'm hoping that we can get 25k views on the actual episode. And then when we have that, so that's a big enough sample size, and hopefully we'll have some statistical significance and all of that stuff, that we can then feed it back in and try and create this self-improving loop where each episode we learn something and we apply that learning to the next episode, and hopefully avoid like massive plot holes or that kind of thing. So just to finish off the different roles, the video editor. So this is going to be a script where it just probably uses FFmpeg or something like that to combine the videos, combine the audio, and then create the finished product. Basically, combine all the data from the cinematographer, the sound supervisor, and the narrator into this script, produce the video, and the video goes back to the director, or maybe even directly to the distributor, which is the final role. The distributor will just upload it to YouTube at first. There's nothing complex about that. Maybe in the future, if we want to put it elsewhere, the distributor would be uploading it to other platforms, but you get the idea. The big challenges in this project will be, firstly, costs. This is going to be very expensive, like I mentioned, but secondly, trying to maintain some kind of visual consistency, style, because I think that the script will be okay. Gemini is good at writing scripts. I've seen similar things in the past, and the narration will be good. Like ElevenLabs has some very advanced text-to-voice models now. The thing that is still in its infancy is Veo3. So we'll see the quality of the videos. I may have to experiment a little bit with Veo3 prompts. I've got some best practices for how to write Veo3 prompts that I'll give to the model, that I'll give to the writer. But we probably will need to tweak this a little bit at least. So that's the goal. That's the structure. That's roughly how this is going to work. So let's dive in. I'm going to be using multiple different LLMs for this. I've put Gemini here, but I'm also going to be using ChatGPT and also Claude Code to write some of these scripts. But yeah, for now, let's just do the fun part, which is coming up with a name for this studio. So let's call it something. It's a TV studio and it's AI. So let's prompt that. We'll come up with a logo and maybe like a animation for the first intro frame. When you see, I don't know, BBC Studios or 20th Century Fox, that kind of thing. Something basic that we can put at the start. And then we'll come up with the first idea. So I think this episode is just going to be 6 minutes long. It's going to be the pilot episode, if you will. And then we're going to plan out maybe 10 episodes for this season. So the first episode needs to have some kind of context, and that would be a 10 episode season. Obviously, there's a limit to what kind of a story you can create in 60 minutes of content over 10 episodes, but hopefully we can do something interesting at least and then learn from it. So that's going to be fun, like coming up with a concept for this story and like some kind of narrative that is interesting and not too generic. But like I said, we can, if it's terrible, we can improve on it next time, and hopefully we'll get some useful data, and then it can be self-improving. The other thing that I thought would be cool to do is the Analyst can pull data from the YouTube API, the Analytics API, but also it can pull data from comments. So if people wanted to, they can they can make suggestions in the comments, or like suggest plot lines, or suggest new characters, or whatever. Like that would be cool. Imagine watching a series and you really want to you really want a romance between two characters. You can write that comment, and if it gets enough support, then that happens in the next episode, or something like that. That would be cool. So I think it would be fun to experiment with that. Again, we're going to have to wait until next episode to do that because we won't have any comments on the video. But that is possible. Okay, so let's jump into ChatGPT and come up with a name for our studio. Okay, so here's my prompt. I'm creating an AI TV studio which generates a television series using AI. Can you help me brainstorm some ideas for the name of the studio? Think about AI-focused things like models, LLM tensors, and other technology associated with the AI models. So let's see what it comes up with. And then maybe I'll also give this prompt to Gemini and see what it comes up with. Okay, so Tensor and ML model expired. Tensor Vision, Tensor TV. Yeah, I quite like Tensor Vision actually. Prompt House, Prompt Frame, Token TV. Kind of sounds blockchain like, not necessarily AI focused. Cortex TV, that's nice, but there's a podcast that's called Cortex that's really good. So I'm not going to use that. Genera TV, Inference Studios, Paramount AI. I don't want to get sued, so let's not do any of these. Okay, I mean, Tensor Vision sounds pretty good. So let's stick with that. So let's come up with a logo for Tensor Vision. Okay, I quite like this. It's kind of retro. I gave it some inspiration with different kind of retro themed TV logos, and this was the prompt. Please create a logo for Tensor Vision based on these retro ideas. This looks pretty good. The typography is pretty nice, and I like this logo. We can definitely do something with this. Now I'm going to try animating this in Veo2, I think. See what it does, or maybe Veo3. Let's try. Actually, Veo2 has you can input an image, whereas Veo3 I don't think you can do that yet. Let's check it out. Yeah, so I'm in Flow now, which is the Google Veo video model interface, and so you can do frames to video, but I think I'm right in saying that if you do frames to video, you're limited in the model. Oh, maybe not. Veo3 quality. Okay. Looks like this now works with Veo3. So let's add our logo. And I'm going to give it a prompt like a cinematic TV intro animation. Let's see what it comes up with that. Okay, so I ended up generating two here. We've got this one, which is the cinematic TV intro animation. Probably won't use the audio, but yeah, the visuals are pretty good. I like the little 3D effects and the lens flare. And then this one, I prompted opening title for a TV studio. The text rolls out of the circle. I tried to specify some kind of animation, which didn't necessarily work exactly how I wanted, but it understood the concept of the text animating, and I think it even knows that's an N, which it's not obvious from the source image. But I think I prefer the first one, so I'm going to download that one, and we won't overthink this. Let's download 1080p. Okay, so next we're going to just come up with the concept or the basic storyline, the overview. So I'm going to try this on Gemini 2.5 Pro. I'm also going to try this on ChatGPT, again, 4.0, or maybe I'll use 0.3 for this. All right, so here's the prompt we're going to use. I want you to think about a concept for a TV series. I want you to give me 3 ideas for the name of the series, the main characters, and the plot lines. Focus on being creative and coming up with a concept that has plenty of scope for expansion. Okay, so we have our concepts. 3 distinct concepts for a TV series, each designed with creative potential and plenty of scope for expansion. Concept 1, the Echo Bazaar. In a forgotten corner of the world lies a clandestine mobile marketplace that appears only at twilight. It's called the Echo Bazaar, and it doesn't trade in goods, but in memories. A hauntingly beautiful yet dangerous place where one can sell a cherished memory for a great reward or buy that forgotten experience of another. It reminds me of a book I read about a library where you could choose different pathways. I've forgotten the name. The Midnight Library, maybe? That was a good book. Potential series titles: The Echo Bazaar, Memories Price, The Twilight Market. Interesting. Main characters: the broker, an ageless and enigmatic figure who runs the Echo Bazaar. The runner, Lena, a young woman in her 20s. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of this. Lena's journey is at the center of the series. She must navigate the treacherous politics of the bazaar. Concept 2, 0 Point Colony. In the mid-22nd century, humanity's first faster-than-light colony ship, the Odyssey, vanishes without a trace. 50 years later, it reappears, crashed on a habitable but bizarre exoplanet. The descendants of the original crew have survived, but they have no memory of the voyage or the crash. They have built a new quasi-medieval society based on fragmented ship logs and corrupted data files that they treat as sacred texts. Interesting. Okay. Potential series titles: The 0 Point Colony, The Odyssey, Inheritance, Children of Far Earth. This is like more sci-fi, I guess. Let's check the third concept: The Ministry of Futures. In a retro-futuristic 1960s-style London, a secretive government department known as the Ministry of Futures uses a network of pre-cognitive individuals, oracles, to avert disaster and maintain national stability. Okay, some more sci-fi. Interesting. I guess Gemini has a taste for sci-fi. Let's check O3's suggestions. Blocks. A whistleblower, an ex-Black Hat hacker, and disgraced city banker unite to expose a global conspiracy hidden in the code of the world's dominant blockchain. Okay, I think this is probably based on the memories that ChatGPT has from my previous interactions. So this is probably trying to write something that it thinks I will like. So let's see. The main characters: Mayor Iqbal, gifted London-based protocol engineer who helped design the original chain, guilt-ridden over unintended consequences. I mean, a series about a blockchain engineer is a pretty specific target market, so I'm not sure about that one. The Ninth Light. When an ordinary coastal town sees a ghostly ninth beam appear beside its historic lighthouse, 8 strangers discover they are light bearers bound to cyclic cosmic events that have quietly shaped human history. And that's pretty broad. I quite like that concept. Green Room 23. In a legendary late-night sketch show's off-limit back corridor, a mundane-looking door leads to any moment in entertainment history, if the culprits can improvise well enough to keep the timeline intact. I mean, I guess this is a comedy, right? Which may or may not work, considering what I've seen from the ability of Veo3 to generate comic scenes. I like the idea of sci-fi. I think Green Room 23 would be too ambitious because of the comedy aspects. I like the Ninth Light. That's got an interesting idea. But I think in terms of visual style, 0 Point Colony is the winner for me, because there's lots of potential here for cool sci-fi concepts. And I know that Veo3 is capable of creating very interesting sci-fi worlds. So I think that would be fun. And there's obviously loads of scope for different storylines, different characters. So let's go with 0 Point Colony. It's kind of like Zero Shot. I'm not sure where 0 Point comes from, but yeah, that's the best title, I think. And let's expand along those lines. So my next query is going to be asking it to expand on this idea a bit. So it's day 2 of the project, and we've had some hidden complexity, which I was half expecting. There's always a bit of hidden complexity in these kinds of projects, mainly around the visual prompting. So the prompting for Veo3. It's more complex than I had imagined, and I'm going to share all the things I've learned and talk you through the rest of the process, what I've done since the last step. So we went with concept 2, 0 point colony. I was following up in Gemini here, and I asked it to plan out 10 episodes, each 6 minutes long, just so we'd have some kind of vague idea of the future of this series, aiming for a 10 episode mini series. What will probably happen is in episode 2, we'll just start with a prompt, based on episode 1. So maybe we won't follow the exact blueprint of this series, but the point is, we have some kind of vague structure. So this is the concept. I'm not actually going to read too much into this because it's not relevant. The only relevant part here is episode 1. But we follow this up pretty quickly with, let's start with episode 1. I need your help to create a list of prompts. We're going to try various models. So this is basically just asking Gemini to give me a list of all of the prompts we'll need for the episode, and also the music and the narration prompts. So this is really the key prompt here. This was what we're basing this whole video on, right? The idea that we can prompt a TV show from one prompt. This would be the prompt. So I've asked it to create the 8-second clip prompts. I've also asked it to create some music prompts. I've tried to limit, like I said, the number of prompts for music. So I said up to 5 prompts for music. And they can be triggered at any time. And we'll need the timestamps. And we obviously need to describe the piece of music, so we can use Udio so we can generate that piece of music in Udio. And I've said the music is 32 seconds long, which I think is the default length in Udio, but you can actually extend Udio pieces. So you can generate the first piece and then you can extend it, which I think we'll do in this case, where necessary. Maybe in the next episode, I'll prompt this a bit better and ask it to decide how long the piece of music should be, because there is some flexibility there. But as I said, we'll be generating these first music pieces manually because there's no API for Udio at this point in time. And I've also mentioned that we're going to be doing a text-to-voice narration. And we don't want it to be the whole 8 minutes. Like, I'm trying not to overuse narration or overuse music. And then I just pasted in this guide I've been building up on Veo3 prompting based on what I've learned from other videos, from other people. And actually I've extended this quite a bit, because what I've done is I've prompted now quite a bit with Veo3, and I've learnt a few things, and I've put all of this into a document, which I'll share with you later, and I'll link down below. But this is going to be my kind of working document where I use this for Veo3 prompting. There's just a load of tips here, like avoid negative prompting, like don't show subs, which is a problem with Veo3. Subtitles appear and they don't make any sense sometimes. And a big issue that I've noticed is when you ask Gemini or O3 or any of those models, any of those LLMs for a list of prompts for Veo3, it implies, I think it assumes there's some kind of context between the prompts. Let me show you an example. So, it came back with this, and it came up with some character reference sheets, which is a great idea, by the way, of having these, very specific descriptions of characters, which you can refer to. This is useful just for your reference, but also it's useful when building these prompts. And one thing I did later on actually was I said, So a few important things about Veo3 prompting that I will share with you. Firstly, reference sheets are very useful, both to give to the LLM when you're prompting the video prompts, but also just for your own reference. If you're trying to remember what a certain character looks like, for example, that's useful. So I'll go into maybe a bit more detail on that later. A couple of issues that I noticed straight away was firstly, the prompts were way too simple, and they weren't referencing the character's visual appearance or the set or the location or times or colors or like everything needs to be specified in individual prompts. Every single prompt in Veo3, unfortunately, because there's very limited context, you are describing the entire universe every single time. And tools like Gemini and ChatGPT struggle with this a lot. They will assume that there's context shared between these prompts, and they'll do things like say, they'll reference the name of the character, for example, instead of saying, like one of our characters is called Dr. Kayleen Reyes. Instead of saying Dr. Kayleen Reyes, a woman in her late 30s with dark, curious eyes, blah, 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 it will just say Dr. Kayleen Reyes and assume that that has already been established. Even when you tell it to repeat that context in every prompt, it will fail. So the only way I could actually find to solve this problem was to re-prompt every single video prompt and get it to add these details individually, which took a lot of time. And I think a way that you can solve this is by putting everything in a spreadsheet. Everybody loves a spreadsheet. Maybe this is overkill, but I found it useful. We've got the clip numbers in the first column, 1 to 45. We've got the start and end timestamps for each clip, and we've got the prompt for each clip as well. We've also got any dialogue that occurs in that clip. We've got any narration that starts, and we've got the music prompt as well. So everything in the video is now in this spreadsheet. And what I've been doing is scrolling through all of these prompts and copying and pasting them into Veo3 or into Flow to prompt Veo3. So let me just also explain a bit about how I've expanded these prompts. So like I said, it was difficult to get it to include all of this context in every single prompt. So I settled on this structure, which I think I found in another YouTube video giving advice on how to prompt Veo3. But the context is this, or the concept, sorry, is this, that you give the subject, so the person that's in, or the people that are in the scene. The context is like the area, the location, anything that's happening. The action is what the characters are doing. So in this case, she sits at a large rustic loom, etc. The style composition. So this is trying to maintain some kind of consistency with lighting and the coloring and stuff like that. And any camera motion. You can actually specify camera motion in Veo3, I've realized. But this is another way of doing it. And then the ambience audio is like the background noise. So if there's a hum of the computer screen or some kind of noise you want to include, that is where you'd put it. And then this column is the dialogue. So I would add this to the prompt as well. Copy and paste this. It includes the the character. If it's a one-person discussion, then it's the characters. We don't need the character name. In this case, her calm, thoughtful, mid-range voice and the standard American accent says softly, maybe they should be. I've noticed that it's not that great at accents. So I know lots of people have created videos with lots of different accents, but it's very difficult to keep it consistent, which is another reason why I wanted to limit the amount of dialogue in this first test. For example, one of the characters, I think the doctor character, one of the main characters, has a pan-Slavic accent. That does not come across at all from what I've seen. So just be aware that you can specify accents all you want. Veo3 may not listen to those specifications. And the other, like American accents, it seems to be good at, basically. But pan-Slavic is probably too specific. And yeah, so make sure that all of the context is included in every prompt, including the accents, the look of the characters, the time of day, the lighting, everything that you want to stay consistent. And even if you do that, there are still some inconsistencies. And that's just a limitation, I think, of Veo3 right now, to be honest. Google have obviously got this tool and they've started to build out this interface, but it's not fully working yet. As of today, there are some serious limitations. For example, there are different settings here. So you can do text to video, which is what I've just been describing. You can also do frames to video, which is very powerful because this is a great way of maintaining context. If you can upload a image, and get some other model to generate the image where you'd have a lot more control. For example, even ChatGPT, you can control a lot in ChatGPT, and you can specify a specific look, or you can create character reference images, showing how the character looks, and then, and also location references and all of that stuff. You can put that into ChatGPT, generate the reference image or the first frame of this clip, add it to this, and then generate it. However, the problem is that doesn't work yet in Veo3, or rather it does work under certain circumstances, but it doesn't generate any audio. And it's very specific about the image you upload. So you can't have photorealistic humans, for example. It won't let you do that. So it's not really working yet. So like when we generated, yesterday, when we generated the intro title for the studio that we've created, like the first intro that's going to be in the eventual video, that was allowed because the frame or the image was not photorealistic human. But for whatever reason, Google will not let you upload photorealistic humans. So like, let's look at this shot. I couldn't upload a picture of our character here and give it a prompt. It just wouldn't let me. I assume that is coming at some point, and you can do that with Veo2, I believe. It may not allow you to do photorealistic humans, but you get a lot more flexibility with Veo2. But Veo3, and especially Veo3 quality, which is the one we're using, it's very restrictive. And the other option is ingredients to video, and that's even better because you can add images or multiple images of the characters. You can see here, I tried to do this. I tried to create even non-photorealistic images of the characters and sets. But then if you upload like a hand-drawn style reference image, the rest of the video will be generated in that style. So you then get this non-photorealistic, you're basically doing an animation at that point. And the audio doesn't work properly. So you're very, very limited. The only way really to reliably generate these high quality photorealistic videos at this stage is to use text to video. So that's that limitation. It's also worth briefly mentioning that you can do this thing where you press add to scene and it puts it into this scene view. And then you have a few other options. So you can take this scene, which is just one of the characters kind of staring at the camera. There's a lot of that, as you'll see later. This is slightly buggy, as is the rest of the interface. But anyway, you can then choose to jump to or extend. And jump to, basically, I think, as far as I can tell, is just, it will take the previous frame or some information. Like you can see here, it's added the first frame, and then you can add a prompt, which is essentially the same as image to video. So you're just taking a frame and you're creating a video. But again, it's very limited. Like it says here, sometimes audio will not be generated. You can't really do this with Veo3 at this stage reliably. So that was not an option for me. The other thing you can do is extend, which actually you can do in Veo3, Veo3 quality, but the audio goes wrong. So actually I tried this on this clip, and I've generated like the final clip. I extended and it did work, but as you'll see in the finished product, it's not kept the audio. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of work to be done on this UI from Google. It's obviously very early days, so I get it. But at this stage, the only reliable thing to do is text to video, and just being as specific as you can with the prompts and with all of the details. It seems to be like Veo3 seems to be relatively consistent If you're using exactly the same character description, for example, here we've got Commander Eva Rostova, woman in her 40s with sharp, severe features, icy blue eyes and blonde hair pulled into a tight military bun. If you use that exact same phrase for every time you describe that character, it does come out looking mostly the same. Not exactly the same, but mostly the same. So I think that's the best strategy here, just being consistent with your prompting. So I did that for all 45 shots. I ran all of them through Veo3 in Flow. And then you can see them all here. And then I downloaded as upscaled and then downloaded, which is a very time consuming and laborious process, but it works. And then let me show you this. Well, actually, let me show you how I did the audio first. So like I said, we're using Udio. And again, my spreadsheet gave me the prompts, the music cues, and so this is the first one: a sparse and atmospheric ambient track, low melancholic synthesizer, etc. I just copy and pasted this into Udio, and I know that it starts on clip number 4, which is the 24-second mark. So I copy and pasted this into Udio, and then selected instrumental and generated it, downloaded it, and put it into my folder. And I just did this for each of the music prompts, and I extended a couple of them to make them slightly to double the length, basically. So instead of 30 seconds, they were 1 minute. I'll incorporate that into the prompt for episode 2, so that it has the power to sometimes extend clips if it wants to. And then for narration, so like I said, we're going to use ElevenLabs. Okay, I can't actually show you what the process is in ElevenLabs because it seems like it's down right now. But yeah, it's not complicated. You go to text to speech, you paste in the text, you generate the speech, you choose a voice, you generate the speech, and then you download as an MP3. And let me show you my structure. So this is the structure that I created. I've got my episode here. I've got the clips that I've generated from Veo3. So we've got 1 to 45. And then we've got the CSV that I just showed you, the logo. Here we go. ElevenLabs is back. Let's try this. Text to speech. Yeah. So you paste the text in here. You choose the voice. You choose the model. And then you press generate. And it will give you a couple of options. Let's just do that. I didn't select a voice. No, it's done it anyway. Okay.
And then a feeling.
And then when you're happy, you can download. Where do you download? That's still generating. Once it's generated, you can download here. There we go. Let's close this. And you can do as many generations as you want. Choose the voice that you want. And it's very simple. And it sounds pretty good. So once you have that, like I said, you can drop it. I dropped it into here. So I've got 5 narrations, which is what the, what Gemini, suggested. And then the music, again, MP3 files, we've got 3 of those. And that is pretty much it. So from that prompt, we've generated all this stuff with the various different models. I'm going to share, I've created a page on Robin Blocks. So now we have this, which is a prompting guide for Veo3. I've just basically shared everything I've learned over the last couple of days with Veo3 prompting in here. Create master character sheets, create master location sheets. One of the problems that you'll see when I show you the video, one of the problems is lighting consistency. I wasn't expecting this to be a huge issue, but there are small consistencies with characters, small inconsistencies with characters and locations. But the lighting is one of the biggest issues. Even though I was trying to maintain this prompt, it was going from like daytime to nighttime and within like a few minutes of each other. And it was just very inconsistent. So I think image to video will help a lot with that. But I think if I was to do this again, I would include more explicitly a separate lighting prompt. You can see I've got all these categories: subject, context, action, style, composition, camera motion, ambience, audio, and dialogue. I would also have like a lighting or time of day kind of section to this, because it's very important. Unfortunately, Veo3 is not as detail oriented as other models or other image models I've used. So it will miss some of this stuff, even if you do specify it. These, like you can see, these prompts are pretty long, and it will maybe incorporate 60% of what you put in this prompt, not everything at all. But yeah, that was the process. And I generated all the clips, and I didn't redo them. So it was very tempting to want to redo them, but once I tested the system and I was happy with the prompt structure, I just went through and generated all 45. And then I put them together. I've just put them in a big row. I've added the narration and the music at the specified points. Any sound or dialogue you hear was generated by Veo3. So yeah, let's watch the video together, and I'm going to do like a little bit of director's commentary kind of thing and just mention what was happening. So here it is, the world premiere of 0 Point Colony episode 1. So I'm pretty happy actually with the intro title. I think that looks pretty cool. I didn't realize that Veo3 was capable of this. So the music from Udio, pretty good. And these kind of, it was very consistent with the forest planet, or at least mostly consistent, which it wasn't for the ship. The ship is like those two shots, not too bad, but the ship changes quite a bit, as you'll see. And the distances. So this was a big issue. Distances, it couldn't tell. I couldn't prompt distances very well. It seems like when Gemini was telling Veo3 to make things far apart, let me just pause it here, then actually they were close, and the opposite. So I don't know how to solve that problem, but bear that in mind when you're prompting. It will not listen to distances. And it seemed to struggle with this spaceship shot quite a bit. Like it's moving when it shouldn't be moving. Like the previous shot, it was still, and now it's moving. And the sizes, like the spaceship cockpit, varies quite a bit. As you can see here, let me just get rid of that. The issue with the subtitles is it's only, I think, in maybe 1 or 2 shots, but you can't negatively prompt that out. So you can't just say no subtitles like you can in other models. They'll stay, as far as I can tell. So hopefully they fix that. The dialogue was okay, but I think there's only dialogue in a few shots, so we wouldn't have noticed any terrible dialogue. And the accents, voices are roughly consistent, but I wouldn't trust that over a lot of shots, to be honest. But it was like I said, I didn't regenerate these clips. This is the first generation, and it got all of the dialogue, I think, correct. So it is good at dialogue. We call them the inheritors. It struggled with these shots, which are meant to be through the binoculars that one of the characters is viewing the planet through, but it just treats them as like camera shots with this binocular overlay. I don't think it fully understands. There was a zoom there, which I think is impressive, but yeah, not particularly realistic. Like I said, it's switching between day and night quite heavily here. So time of day and lighting is definitely an area that needs to be improved. And this binoculars overlay was not consistent. And another weird thing is that it switches between like what looks like a 3D render, like a video game style, to actually quite photorealistic. So consistency of style is still a problem. The interior of the ship, mostly, I think, is consistent. Apart from, like I said, like it's nighttime here. I think in the previous shot it was day. So that's not that great. It struggled a bit with the UI of these computer interfaces. And here, look, you can see the ship's quite big. Maybe this is a bigger area of the ship, but in the other shot, it definitely wasn't that big. And here it's like weirdly moving through a forest as she's staring pensively out the window. And she's holding binoculars in some shots, but not others. And yeah, this one's kind of like flying through. So it struggled a bit with this kind of binocular idea. I get the concept. And by the way, I still don't fully understand this story. I've watched this a couple of times now, and I think it makes sense, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Let's just say that. But I'll upload the video after this, and you can make your own judgment. But yeah, this is a good sound. The sound effects generated were pretty good, actually. That's why I guess Veo3 has been popular for ASMR and other stuff that we've seen on the socials. And then I think this was more of a problem with Gemini, but the kind of structure is a bit weird. It's going back and forth between the ship here and the other woman character. And there's a lot of staring at the end. You'll see this in a second, but there's just a lot of heavy eye contact, and I'm not really sure what's going on, to be honest. But yeah, it's interesting. But the last section is quite good. It's quite tense, especially with the music. And I think the music and narration is what holds this together, because without that, it would definitely be way more just separate and less cohesive. But you can see the character here, like the local character, whatever her name is, she's pretty consistent through different shots, and I think that's just from the character prompt being consistent. This character, I think she's a bad guy. Like, I don't know what the story is here, really, to be honest, but I think she's a bad guy. You'll see that the twist in a second. There's a lot of heavy eye contact coming up. These shots are pretty photorealistic. It seemed to get more photorealistic as time went on. And actually, some of the last shots are really quite... but then it switches between the two. Like, this definitely looks like a video game, again. But the last few shots are very interesting, very, like, photorealistic. You can see the kind of wooded concept is continued here.
A feeling.
And the narration, I think, it works. Maybe it's not perfect. This is an example of the distances issue. So I think in the prompt, I think I read it's meant to be like quite far apart, but that's obviously very close. And here's like the heavy eye contact. Don't really know what's going on here. Maybe they know each other, or maybe there's something else going on. This is the twist. Why is there a red button? Or some kind of keypad? What's she gonna do? But yeah, overall, pretty happy with this. I was surprised how cohesive it is. And I think as soon as we have... I just added some credits here. This was me. This wasn't the model, but obviously we could prompt this quite easily. So in summary, I think it's not quite there in terms of context. So Veo3 and Flow struggle a lot still with context, and it's going to be a lot easier when they add this ability to add, let me show you again, add images and so on to Flow. Where is it? Yeah, as soon as we get access to frames to video and ingredients to video for Veo3, that's going to unlock a lot of options when it comes to context and consistency. I would not be surprised if Google release a new version of Flow where you can add certain context, like you can with Notebook LM, for example. If you've ever tried Notebook LM, you can add YouTube videos, text, other context, and then prompt based on that context. I would not be surprised if Flow does a similar thing. It'll be so much easier if you can tell the model what your characters look like, show them what they look like, upload some backstory for each of the characters, and so on, and then generate the clips. You'll get a lot more consistency. But at this stage, I think we've shown that it is possible to take one prompt. In this case, I added multiple prompts, but we could have used one prompt and then generate a whole episode. The main limitations here are just lack of APIs. I personally can't prompt Veo3 programmatically because I don't have access to the API. There is one, but I don't have access. And things like Udio don't have APIs. So as I automate this, I'm hoping that some of these will create APIs, but if not, we're just going to have to look for other options that allow programmatic prompting. But I can see a not too distant future where you can type in a single prompt and it will generate an entire 6 minutes, even 10-minute long sequence with music, narration, audio, and video. And it will have some cohesion. So we're getting there really fast. This has been a fun experiment, and I definitely want to do episode 2. So please go to that video and watch it in its entirety. I'll link to it below. And leave a comment suggesting what you want to see in the next episode. Because like I said, we're going to use this concept of a analyst to pull all of those comments from the YouTube API, summarize them, and then feed that in to the prompt for the writer prompt. So Gemini will take that in. Gemini will take details from this episode and generate the prompts for episode 2. So we could have some crazy plot twists or some new characters, but please let me know your ideas if you have them, and it'd be interesting to see how that works out. But until then, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.